Hello everyone, it's Diana.
I'm Nick.
And we are Team RCIA. It's Tuesday. That means it's Tuesday with Team RCIA. And this week, Thursday, yes, we are going to have a webinar that will focus on the baptized candidates for the RCIA. And as part of that webinar, we've begun a little survey among the 350 or so people who have registered.
The reason that we decided to do this webinar is because what we suspect and what we hear back from a lot of you is that most of the people in your RCIA process are baptized people. Mm-hmm. And the rite of Christian initiation of adults is for unbaptized people. It's for initiation. And so if folks are already initiated, then the question comes up, what are we doing in the RCIA process? A lot of the training that we do, we start with the principles and the process for the unbaptized. And oftentimes we get feedback, well, we don't have any unbaptized, or we have very few unbaptized in our process. So what do we do with the baptized? And that's kind of the genesis for wanting to have this conversation that we're going to have on Thursday. As a prelude to that, we asked you some questions. We asked everybody who signed up some questions about who's in their process and what they're doing in their process. So what we want to do on this Facebook Live is go over that survey. And we have a link for that survey that you can get. Diana's going to paste that in the...
You mean the survey results?
Survey results, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and paste that.
About 300 people have filled it out so far. And I saved the current results to a PDF,
so
and you can download that if you want to look at it. But I'm gonna go over them verbally. As you can see, they're kind of all in pretty colors from the form that we set up. So we're going to talk about those.
Oh, and while you're doing that, I'll just go ahead and add in the link to sign up for this Thursday's webinar. It's free, Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific.
And if you want to take the survey yourself, go to that link and sign up for the webinar. And on the thank you page, there'll be the survey to fill out that we're going to talk about today.
So one of the questions that we asked on the survey was, on average, what kind of seekers are in your process? And, a lot of times we treat the RCIA as a catch-all for everyone. And we often say, if you want to learn more about becoming Catholic, come to RCIA. And we mean that anyone, even if you're already baptized, even if you're already fully initiated, come to RCIA. But again, we have to remember that the RCIA process is specifically for the unbaptized. And yet, what did our survey discover?
Well, only 20% of the folks who responded, only 20% of them have mostly unbaptized people in their process. Mm-hmm. So 80% have, well, the vast majority of it, 51%, are baptized uncatechized. And then about, I've got to get my reading glasses on here. About 8% are baptized catechized. And then everybody else is like a mix of those. So you can see that something like 80% of RCIA teams are dealing with baptized people in some form or another, either in combination with the unbaptized, or catechized, baptized, or uncatechized, baptized. And so then, so that raises a challenge about what is it that we're doing in RCIA? Why do we have an initiation process for people who are already initiated?
Yeah, and there's so many ways to address that. It's a big sociological kind of question. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the important things for us to understand, for RCIA teams to understand, is what do we mean by catechized and uncatechized, right?
Sure.
Whether or not baptized or unbaptized. Many of the people who responded to that question, more than 50%, said that they had baptized uncatechized. And I would guess that sometimes we mean uncatechized as they don't know a lot about the church, about Catholicism, that they don't know enough And is that what uncatechized means in the RCIA?
Yeah, and it's not clear from, I mean, I didn't ask it that way in the survey, like how well catechized.
Yeah.
I just said uncatechized or catechized, because that's the distinction that's made in the RCIA. But in paragraph 400 of the RCIA, it defines what uncatechized means. And for the purpose, so again, this is for the purposes of the rites, not for the purposes of what they need to know to be an active Catholic or to be fully aware of their faith or any of that. It's just for the purposes of the rites. The RCIA says uncatechized means those who are baptized as infants and got no further formation of any kind. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if someone made it to First Communion when they were in first grade, and they celebrated their First Communion, and they had a really awful preparation process for First Communion, and they were not a very attentive disciple while they were in their First Communion process. Well, they, for the purposes of the rites, they're quote-unquote catechized, but they don't know nearly enough. They need way more formation to be able to live a strong Catholic lifestyle. All it means is that at some point along the way, they got enough formation in their life to be able to celebrate First Communion, or went to vacation Bible school as a Baptist or something like that. They had some childhood level of catechesis. Yeah.
And so maybe if we just review again what paragraph 400 says, and in the Canadian edition it's 3, we forget, we're sorry, Canadians, but in paragraph 400 it says the following pastoral guidelines concern adults who were baptized as infants, either as Roman Catholics or as members of another Christian community, but did not receive further catechetical formation, nor consequently the sacraments of confirmation and Eucharist. So nothing, they didn't receive any kind of relationship, formation, classes, connection to the Christian community.
So what that means for the purposes of adapting a rite of initiation for people who are already initiated is that we're going to take the principles that we use with the unbaptized and some of the formation processes that we use with the unbaptized, and we're going to apply those to the baptized uncatechized.
The principles, apply the principles.
Yeah.
Yes. We're not going to pretend they are unbaptized.
Right.
We're not going to treat them like they're catechumens and celebrate rituals that are specific for the catechumens. We're going to take the principles of formation, the principles of discernment for the rites, and use that with the baptized.
So going back to some more of our survey questions, and one of the huge elements of formation for unbaptized people is that they have to be in the formation process for at least one full liturgical year, because it's the celebration of the Sunday liturgy, Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, as the mystery of Christ unfolds throughout the celebration of the whole year. That's the primary place of their formation for the unbaptized. So if you take a baptized person, you say they never got any formation, they never went to Sunday Mass, they never had an experience of going every Sunday, year after year after year, in that process of seeing the mystery of Christ unfold in a sacramental liturgical way. They never ever had that. Well, then we would say, well, they got to do that. We have to immerse them just like we do the catechumens in a whole liturgical year cycle, at least one, maybe several years. So we asked, one of the questions we asked in the survey is, what is the time frame? How many of you are doing year-round catechesis, and how many of you are doing more of a beginning of the school year to spring kind of thing, Easter or Pentecost sort of thing? And it turns out I was pretty excited by this result. Mm-hmm. So of the people who responded, about 43-44% are doing year-round catechesis. Now that may be the folks who kind of associate with Team RCIA. Maybe they're a higher percentage of doing year-round than the average parish, but still, I think 5-10 years ago we would not have gotten a number that high. So to have close to half of the parishes who responded doing a year-round process is amazing. So great work, great work.
And again, in the survey, we didn't drill down into what that exactly looks like and what people interpret as a year-round catechumenate. And so sometimes people think year-round catechumenate means an RCIA class every week, which really, if you look at the RCIA, doesn't say anything about an RCIA class every week. It does say that the primary formation is the life of the community, and the life of the community does happen every week, even in pandemic. And so a year-round catechumenate really is a lot easier when you think of the life of the parish as your catechumenate than if you're thinking, oh gosh, I have to plan 52 lesson plans for this coming year. That's overwhelming. And so great job to everyone who said they're doing a year-round process.
And then we had a significant number of folks doing other, they checked the other box and they wrote in specific responses, and many of them said we're moving toward year-round. We have plans to go to year-round. We're trying to get to things like that. So it's a little, the folks who are actually going to be there, say the next time we do the survey, is going to be higher than 43%. So
I think the latest blog post at the Team RCIA website is a reader's story from Philip Lomnith in Rochester, Minnesota, how their parish has moved to a year-round process.
Another question I asked is what's the discipleship training process that you use? So again, thinking of taking the principles that we use for the uncatechized and trying to apply those to the baptized. For the unbaptized, taking the principles we use for the unbaptized and try to apply those to the baptized. Then we want to look at what kind of formation would we do with an unbaptized person, and can we use that or some adaptation of that with a baptized person? And so we asked, are you doing mostly lecture? Are you doing mostly parish immersion? Are you doing mostly reading of a textbook or a catechism? Are you doing mostly videos? Or are you doing something else? And so this was all split up. So the largest response was about 19% said they're doing lecture. And the second largest response was that they're about 17% folks said they're doing parish immersion or apprenticeship. So again, that's a big shift. I would say when I started doing this, everybody was doing lecture. And to have now close to 15% or more of our parishes that are doing apprenticeship and parish immersion is again very exciting, because that is, in the RCIA, that is the model that we would do with the catechumens. And we can very easily adapt that and apply that to baptized people who, formation-wise, are a lot like the catechumens. They never got any formation as a child, and we can begin to use the parish, immerse them into the life of the parish as apprentices in faith, and by sort of seeing Catholics in the wild, seeing Catholics actually doing Catholic stuff. They learn by example how to be Catholic themselves.
I wonder too if just our growing sense of adult learning and education comes into play here, where lectures are great. I love a lecture. I love going to a class. But when we're talking about turning a person's heart, changing a person's heart, lecture isn't necessarily the best way to do that, because what we're trying to do is not infuse information into a person's head, but to open their heart to a transformation through the Holy Spirit. And that means a change in their behavior, a change in their way of life.
And then I should say too, on this question, the largest response was that other box where folks could write in their own responses. And of those responses, a whole bunch of those we're doing some combination of all of the above. So that's a little hard to discern. Are they if they're going to mass every Sunday, that's almost like parish immersion. And then if they're doing lecture on Wednesday night, so you've got both parish immersion and lecture. So you might hit that other button or something like that. And I I need to write the question more clearly. I'm not a social scientist, so I don't know how to write these. So I was trying to get at what do you use mostly? What would you say is your biggest component of your formation process? So if you're doing a combination, maybe I should have left off the other so people be forced to pick one. But if you're doing a combination, what are you using mostly? And RCIA, the model that's in the vision of the catechumenate is given to us by Vatican II, would say it's that life of the parish, being immersed in the life of the parish. That should be what we're mostly doing. And all these other things would be supplemental to that. But if we're not doing apprenticeship as the primary model, we're missing what it is to form people in discipleship according to the vision of the Second Vatican Council.
I would be very impressed if someone had written down that their primary discipleship training process that they use mostly is the Sunday Mass. So go write that down if you're going to take the survey. But specifically, the RCIA, the principle that comes out of the RCIA, we get that in paragraph 75. That is the discipleship training model that we should all be using, whether for the catechumens or the baptized, and that is that life of the parish in the area of word, community, worship, and witness.
So the next question on here, I'm again excited, and I'm a little distrustful that it's accurate. I hope it's accurate. The question is, how often do you employ mystagogical catechesis? And on the survey, I purposely didn't define what that was. And again, like 5-10 years ago, I think if we would have said the phrase mystagogical catechesis, most people wouldn't know what we're talking about. And again, this might be specific to folks who associate themselves with Team RCIA, because we talk about mystagogical catechesis all the time. So folks who are not associated with us, maybe they don't have as deep an understanding of that. But anyway, on the survey, the largest response was 35%. Almost every time we interact with the seekers, we're employing some type of mystagogical catechesis. And that's just astounding to me. That, again, that probably would have never happened when I started in this ministry.
I want to see what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
That's really exciting and amazing. And
Yeah.
and again, that's a principle that we can use for any of our formation, whether for the catechumens or the baptized, whether or not it's for preparing for the initiation sacraments, or say for matrimony, for First Communion, for children, for anything. Mystagogical catechesis is the principle that the RCIA uses to break open the meaning of the sacraments. And our popes have at least the recent ones, have constantly encouraged the use of more mystagogy in general in our catechesis.
Now, the next highest responses were a tie. The second highest response at 17% was, we only do mystagogical catechesis during the Easter season. And that comes from the word that we apply to the Easter season, is the period of mystagogy. And so a lot of folks think, especially if they're new to the process, if they're new to this understanding of what mystagogical catechesis is, they think we only do mystagogy in the period of mystagogy. And that's really, it's incorrect. We do mystagogical catechesis every time we interact with the seekers from the moment we first meet them as inquirers, through their whole period, the year or more after they've been initiated, and even on ongoing formation should always have elements of mystagogical catechesis. And almost tied with that, the third highest response at 16% was, I don't know. And that may be that, again, they don't really know what mystagogical catechesis is, and they need more formation around what that is and how that happens. So then the last question we want to deal with on the survey then is, on average, how many seekers, baptized or unbaptized, are preparing for full initiation or reception into full communion at any given time? And the choices were 1 to 4, 5 to 9, and 10 or more.
And so that means that the number one was almost 46% at 1 to 4 people at a time. That means in almost half of the respondents' parishes, there's 1 to 4 people, which is great, but I think we can do better, right? And that's one of the things that we tend to forget about the rite of Christian initiation of adults. The very, very, very first step of that rite is the period of evangelization and pre-catechumenate. And so if we are evangelizing all the time, we would hope that there would be more people being drawn to Christ. And so it's a good number for us to know, because then we know that we can improve and keep working toward more hearts being drawn. Now, and this isn't about numbers. This isn't about having a big RCIA group, but it's about are we doing our part to announce the good news, to, as Pope Francis says, the first proclamation, to announce that in such a way by our actions and our words that it makes a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, and so just to underline Diana's point, and there was another option on here too, and so one of the respondents in the other box wrote they have over 40 among children, teens, and adults, and then the very next other response under that was 0. So you've got like this whole range of folks not announcing the good news enough, or in a way that attracts anyone, to another parish that's attracting 40 people at a time or something. So the second highest response on that question, the highest was 1 to 4, as Diana said, about 46%, and the second highest response was 5 to 9 at 29%. And so what I took away from that is in over 70% of the parishes responding, the number of seekers in our process at any given time is fewer than 10. Now, we talk often about creating an individualized, a customized, a unique faith formation plan, faith formation journey for each of our seekers. And it's not that we are saying that so much, it's that the Holy Spirit is saying that. The Holy Spirit impacts each person's life in a unique way, and their faith journey is going to be unique. And we tell teams, so that means then we have to do our accompaniment of them on the journey of faith in a way that is unique to that individual. And then they freak out, that's going to be so much work, and we don't have the people and the resources and the whatever. And then we discover in this survey that most of us have fewer than 10 people in our process. So that should be a cakewalk for almost, it's going to be way easier than the parish that has 40 people in their process. So we really need to, baptized or unbaptized, catechized or uncatechized, we need to pay attention to the individual path that the Holy Spirit is calling each person to, and how we can be people of accompaniment, ministers of accompaniment with them on that path, and not try to get them onto our path where we have a neat lecture series or video series that everybody has to fit into. This cannot be a one-size-fits-all process.
Mm-hmm. And I think with, again, looking at the principles for the catechumenate, this individualized formation for each person relies on our understanding and our really embracing that the life of the parish is who catechizes, that it's not just the RCIA team, not just the director or the pastor, not one person, but the entire life of the parish, because that's where we encounter Christ most fully, in the life of the parish. So every person in your parish has a responsibility of formation for each of those 10 people or so in your process. And when you think of it that way, it's a lot easier to personalize, individualize, make it customized for each person, because it's not all just your job, it's the entire parish's job. So rely on your sponsors, rely on the people who sit next to that person. Well, of course now they're not sitting because it's COVID time, but people from the parish who interact with your catechumens and your candidates, help them, invite them into a discernment process that can address what each person needs throughout their formation.
So if you want to look at that survey a little more closely, the link is in the comments section there. You can download that. The survey is still open, so if you want to participate in the survey, go to the sign-up page for the webinar and sign up for the webinar, and on that thank you page you'll get the survey. And then we also hope you'll come to the community chat, the webinar that we're going to do on Thursday, this in 2 days. As I started, what we're going to focus on then, we're going to talk about the survey at the top of that conversation, but the point of that is about leading us into then what rites we celebrate with the baptized people, depending on where they are on that faith journey, because it's different. It's not like the catechumens where they have one slate of rites that they all have to participate in. Because it's initiation. They're being initiated into Christ. It's a sacramental journey, and so we have to have matter and form. It has to conform to the teaching of the church for initiation. With the baptized folks, it's not as it's more optional. They're more optional rites that we do with the baptized people, and we have to decide based on where they are on the faith journey.
So sign up, it's free. It's Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And what else was I going to say about it? Oh yeah, we have almost 350 people signed up.
Yeah.
Currently already.
So go make it 400.
Yes, that would be great.
We'll be like the latest polling places, try to get us up over a certain number.
No more about that. Anyways, we hope to see you on Thursday, and thanks as always for all the great work that you are doing all year round.
All right, everyone. Take care. God bless.
Thank you. Bye.